Hey y'all, Rick Sky here. Welcome back to another Timepieces for Tomorrow video. And within this video, I want to talk about two popular watch brands, Rolex and Omega. What's better in 2026, Rolex or Omega? Well, I own both, and I can tell you that there's pros and cons to each. Omega has traditionally been offered at a lower price point than Rolex, but things have changed. Recently, Omega has really ratcheted up their prices, so has Rolex. So if you're looking at it from a price perspective, Omega is no longer a much more affordable option. The prices are more closely linked between the two brands, between Rolex and Omega. Both have deep history. I mean, you've got, with both brands, you've got the James Bond connection. If you're in, if you like the James Bond character, that's present in both. Both are exceptionally well made, highly water resistant dive watches. And I'm gonna, they've got more than dive watches, Rolex and Omega does, but I'm going to center this commentary around dive watches. So the Rolex Submariner, arguably the most iconic wristwatch in the world. The Omega Seamaster 300M, arguably also another very iconic wristwatch. Where Omega and Rolex are different, Omega releases a bunch of variations of their wristwatches, including the Omega Seamaster 300M. So there's so many colors, there's so many configuration differences that Omega, from that perspective, has kind of positioned themselves for a little bit of failure. I mean, the consumer wants options, but with Rolex, you're going to see less variation of the Submariner, for example. So there's the possibility of, and again, wristwatches are not investments. Some people think they are, but they're not. The possibility of continued price appreciation with Rolex is probably going to remain stronger than Omega, because it's hard to deny the fact that Rolex has an excellent marketing department, and they position themselves for people, especially people that don't know wristwatches. They position themselves as the household name for wristwatches. Most everybody's going to know the word Rolex. Not everybody necessarily would know Omega. Now, most people are, but not everyone. So from that perspective, Rolex is probably going to be a tier higher on the potential trade or potential resale spectrum. If you ever wanted to, try to sell or trade and go with something different, you're probably in a better spot if you go with Rolex over Omega. But if you go with Omega, and again, we're centering this around the dive watches, but I will step outside of the dive watch realm for a moment. If you're going with Omega, you've got to be careful, because they've got so many references, and then they've got so many variations of each reference. So if you go with Omega, you need to stick with the core. And by saying that, what I mean is, if the possibility of trade or resale in the future is of concern, you need to stick with the core. But with Omega, you would stick with the Speedmaster, the man on the moon, or you would go with the Seamaster 300M. Those would be the two that I would consider from Omega. Whereas with Rolex, you're pretty much safe across the range. Everything from their Submariner to their GMT to their dress watches, the Datejust. Rolex is pretty much safe across the range, but Omega, one should be very careful. But in today's world, in 2026, should somebody go with Omega or should they go with Rolex? The price difference nowadays, Omega is no longer a discount proposition. But the other thing to consider, again, back to the possibility of future trade or resale, might it be worth going with the Rolex just for the possibility of nothing's guaranteed, but the possibility of enhanced value in the future if you wanted to sell or trade. So there's that component. But don't let potential dollars steer the decision. Looking at both Omega and Rolex, both are exceptionally well designed wristwatches. They're built to potentially last several lifetimes, very well made. Neither one would be a poor decision. But I will caution you, with Omega, stick with Seamaster 300M, and go with a blue dial or a black dial. I would stay away from all of these crazy fly-by-night Seamaster 300M references. And then with Rolex Submariner, you're pretty much, you're safe across the range. Whether you want no date or a date or whatever, if you want to get into precious metals, that's up to you. But either would be a safe decision. But back to Omega, if you go with the Speedmaster, definitely for collectability, go with the Hesalite crystal, or you can go with the Man on the Moon sapphire sandwich. I wouldn't touch any of the other Omega Speedmasters. And I mean, that's, some people say, well, what about the Snoopy if you can get one of those? That's collectible, but is it really that good? I don't know. You tell me, comment below. Rolex versus Omega. For the long haul, I'm the most comfortable with Rolex, but in the past, especially when there was a significant price difference between Omega and Rolex, Omega was able to be obtained at a lesser price point, and it's just as good of a wristwatch, in my opinion. Now, well, you get into wearing gloves and trying to do the bezel, that's kind of tough with the Omega Seamaster 300M. Rolex has them beat on that, but I mean, all the current references, they're using ceramic bezels. It's either is a good decision, but again, be careful on the Omega front with the particular reference, whereas with Rolex, that's not as big of a deal. Hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and check out all of my Timepieces for Tomorrow videos. Y'all have a good day. Hey y'all, Irix Guy here. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please be sure to subscribe to my channel, and when you do, ring that bell icon to be notified whenever I post another video. Thanks for your viewership, and y'all have a good day.